Hello and welcome to Inside Music, episode number 122. I'm your host, James Shotwell, and it's great to be with you again. My guest this week is none other than Capital North, one of the great, fast-rising, unsigned rock bands of North America, and they're here to talk about their new EP, Sea to Sky, which will be released on March 2nd. This episode also deals with the reality of being a rock band in America today, specifically an unsigned one. The members of Capital North have been in bands before, and they've learned a lot through that time, but they've also seen how the industry is changing. We're going to discuss how promotion is different and how bands have to think about releasing their music in a new way now that we're in the streaming age. It's a great conversation, and I really think you're going to take a lot away from it. But before we get there are a few things I need to highlight. First and foremost, this episode of Inside Music is brought to you by Holix, the music industry's leading promotional distribution company. What that means is that Holix works with record labels, managers, and independent artists from all over the world to share new and unreleased music without fear of piracy. Should leaks occur, Holix is not only able to help stop the spread of files online, but to also find the people responsible for the leaks. To learn how they do this and gain access to a free 30-day trial, visit holix.com. That's HAULIX.com. I also want to encourage you to follow the show on Twitter. That's at Inside Music Pod or at Inside Music POD. Finally, support Capital North. In fact, support all up-and-coming rock bands that you know of. Rock music needs fan support like never before, and bands like Capital North are doing something really special. So I'm going to play a little bit of music from them, and then we're going to get to the show. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the conversation. I think the easiest way to start, because most people won't know both your voices, is if you could each just introduce yourself with your name so that everyone listening at home will be able to differentiate between the two of you.
Okay. This is Jonathan from Capital North.
This is Tony from Capital North.
Are you guys both based in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Greater Los Angeles area.
Greater Los Angeles area.
A gigantic area.
About to say, that's quite the distance when we're talking like 8 million people.
Yeah, it's massive. I'm over in the Pasadena area.
Mm. And how early? So it's 6:30 in the morning there. I'm impressed that you guys have this dedication to music on a Monday morning.
Oh yeah. Usually, I'm up at 5:30 on Mondays. Usually, trying to get my my gym session and get the day started and everything. Today I actually slept in.
Does that go for both of you?
Yeah, usually what?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we both have 9 to 5 jobs, so usually I'd be on the road already by now. But it's a holiday for me, so I get to sleep in, except I don't.
Yeah. So
You're off today?
Yeah, I'm off today and next Monday.
Lucky.
Yeah, look at you. Well, I appreciate it because I usually, when I schedule these podcast calls, especially with people on the West Coast, I end up doing them at 7:30 at night because nobody's awake before 2. So when they were like, "Oh, 6:30," I was like, 6:30? They'll be up at 6:30? Absolutely.
No, we're really excited, man. We appreciate the opportunity. So
No, it's great.
we are glad to get up early for it.
No, I heard your new single the other day. Jen from Catalyst sent it over, and I really dug it. And then I saw the video, and I really dug that. And so I was like, well, this makes sense. So we should talk about it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Now, I want to talk about the history of the band and stuff, but we might as well start there since we just brought it up. But the debut single of this project, Capital North, is Glass Houses, and you put it out about a month ago now. Is that right?
Yep. Yep, on January 29th, I believe.
Okay, so like 2 weeks. So it's been about a month since you announced your debut release, though. I believe that was like early January.
Yep, that's correct.
So how long have you guys officially been a group? I know, like, can someone give me like the history of Capital North? Because I know that there's a band that comes before it, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Tony, you take that one.
okay. So this started in 2009. So 2009, I was writing music with this guy who's also named Anthony, and we're at our like hometown rehearsal studio, and we saw an ad for a guitar player and a drummer looking for a guitar player and a singer. We're like, oh, hey, that's us. So we called that ad, and that was Jonathan and his brother. And we practiced together one time just to like meet up, and then we kind of were never apart after that. So that stemmed a band called Lights in the Sky, and we did that for a long time, for at least 6 years, I think. And the last tour that we did with Lights in the Sky was we were piggybacking off of Warped Tour, selling demos in line. And then we did a EP release tour before that, and then we did the demo slinging tour, and then we did a tour right after that as well. So we were gone for like 5 months or 4 months. And when we came home, our drummer got kicked out of the country essentially, and our bass player was gone, and yeah, we just needed a break, so we took a couple of months off, and a couple of months turned into a couple of years kind of, and we finished college and all kind of went off and did our own things, you know. If you want to take the rest of that, John.
Jonathan?
Yep.
Is there more to the story? You got is that
Yeah, you want to pick it up from that part, dude?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry. I was like intently waiting. I was really in the moment with the story, like reliving all the memories. But sorry, but no. Early. It's still early here for me, actually. No, but yeah. So after that, after all that stuff happened, and the drummer got kicked out and everything, we took some time off. Tony and I like kind of like did our own thing for a little while. And then Tony finished culinary school, and then I just saved up some money and I decided to travel a bit. So I traveled and saw some parts of the world, and then I was like, I went to Iceland, and I went to a city up in Iceland called Akureyri, and that's where they call it the capital of the North. So that's kind of where the name originates from. But when I was there, I had like these kind of, moments of realization that I needed to keep playing music, and I needed to chase it, and I needed to do it with Tony, because we'd been together doing it for so long, and we both had the dedication, and it's both of our passions. So I ended up calling Tony, and we ended up kind of making plans for when I got back to start working on stuff, and that's kind of where it took off. Got back, started working on writing, and showed Tony some stuff, and then from there we've been working on Sea to Sky for, say, like almost 3 years now. So it's been like a long time, a long time in the making. But yeah, that's where it kind of happened, when I was traveling, and Tony was finishing high school, and we realized that that we needed to come back together and give it one more shot, and here we are with Capital North.
Yeah. It was weird. The making of Sea to Sky took so long. Not because of like writer's block or anything. We came up with the songs, I mean, I don't want to say fast, but relatively quickly.
Yeah, fairly.
But getting everything organized is what took forever. We did pre-production, and that took a long time, and then we decided to actually do this like kind of like in quotations the right way this time. So instead of just getting into a studio and being like, I don't know, and just putting something down, we wanted to do proper pre-production. We wanted to have a good studio with a good engineer, we would have proper post production and not just use whatever mix came out, you know. When we were younger and we put out our first CD ever, it was just like we went to our friend Dave's studio. He's like actually pretty famous in the independent music scene. It's called Love Juice Labs. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he did like Rufio's first album. He's done a ton of stuff. And it was like a 2-day process, you know, and this was polarizing. It was totally like a 2-year process, you know. So we did production. We had to find a studio that we wanted to do, not just any studio. We did that. We were in that studio for like a month probably. Post production took a long time, and just getting everything organized was a really long process this time. And then honestly, the album's been done for going on 6 or 7 months, but just getting enough time to save up for merch and scheduling the show and pressing the CDs and design and marketing and PR and all those things, you know, if the money was flowing in, you know, if we were rich, I'm sure it would have came out last year, but to put it out the right way that we wanted to, it took a little time, you know.
A lot of patience, for sure. Yeah, a lot of patience.
Absolutely. And you guys really recruited quite the team for working on this record with you. And I like the diversity because you have Jensen, who did like Sugar Rose and Jamie Foxx records, but then you also work with Bertrand and Ponchette, who did, you know, Chunk No Captain Chunk, and that mix of having kind of touched every genre in the past with the people you surround yourselves with, I think really informs your sound, because it's not just one kind of rock. You guys really put yourselves out there in a lot of different ways.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, I think definitely like the team that we have behind the album is pretty indicative of like who we are as musicians, because Tony and I, like, we're very eclectic in who we are influenced by and like who we're always listening to, and it's always changing and everything. So I mean, like, I know I'm like a huge fan of Sigur Rós because I love Iceland so much, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to have. It was really cool to have like different styles like forming the complete product, because everyone has such a different background and such a different like opinion on things, that it's so interesting to see like how people get things done in their own like different ways in their different genres, you know.
Absolutely. And for you guys, how does this group differ, I guess, sonically from what you've done in the past? Like, most people obviously won't have a reference to your older project, but in terms of comparisons, is this kind of a continuation of what you guys are doing, or is this a completely different sound for you?
So when we started to kind of put this music together and record, there's definitely nods at the old music, but we kind of wanted to have a bit of a more mature sound, not necessarily like just, you know, straight rock and roll 4 chords and a drum beat, but we tried to make it a little more accessible. The old music was, you know, like somewhere in that emo pop punk hardcore genre. We got compared a lot to bands like Four Year Strong and A Day to Remember and stuff, and this is more I don't know, the guitar riffs are more complex and the drumming is more intricate and it's more groovy, and there's still hints at it. Like if you hear the whole album, there is a breakdown and there is a little bit of screaming and stuff like that. But for the most part, we wanted to make something that would kind of get us away from that whole like Warped Tour scene. You know, we wanted to.
Absolutely.
We feel like that's kind of a trap, and I have nothing against that because I grew up with that, you know. But you know, I've seen so many bands come up with us or before us that influenced us that get stuck there, and we didn't want that, you know. Like for instance, like I love Yellow Card, and I grew up with Yellow Card, and Yellow Card made a great name for themselves, and they did very well before they quit, you know. But I mean, Yellow Card played Warped Tour like 7 times, you know. And so that was like their thing, and I didn't want to be in a situation where like I was attached to something like that. So our goal in this was to kind of segue out of the old style just keep refining. So I would expect that the next album will be a little more refined and a little more grown up, you know. And John and I aren't 20 anymore, you know. So it's fun to nod to our youth, but we're old men now, you know.
I get that.
So, yeah. So we
Speak for yourself, Tony.
Hey, yeah, I'm the old guy, but we still have fun. We still, you know, are crazy on stage, and we still want to yell and scream a little bit. But it's also fun to make music that's like that musicians can appreciate. I think that's something we've always tried to do is write music for musicians, because it's easy to just do a punk beat and scream into a mic and play 4 chords and spin around and dance, and you know, one thing I'm really proud of as a band is that we were never one of those bands that was about tricks, you know. We're not one of those bands that like would do the guitar spin, the backflip, and
Synchronized dance moves.
Synchronized dancing, and as much as I, you know, we do take care and pay attention to our live set as far as aesthetic goes and visual and stuff like that. You know, we've also played shows, and some of my favorite shows that we've ever played have been, you know, on the floor of a warehouse in a dark room that didn't have lights, with floodlights that we brought on tour so we could fix the van as our backline, you know? And so I think that really it's just more grown up, you know? It's just, and hopefully not in a bad way. What do you think, John?
I think, yeah, I was going to say, like, just to add on to you, like, I think, as far as what Tony said, I think, like, the message that I get, that I was kind of pondering about the other day was, like, with Lights in the Sky, I kind of felt like we were almost trying to, like, be a certain way, and that might have just come from, like, our immaturity, or, like, just from, like, being so excited to get into the scene and being kind of, like, enamored with it. But now I think, like, that we have so much more experience and so much more, like, you know, like, know-how and like with the scene and everything, that we kind of just did what was natural for this album. And it was kind of painless in the writing, at least, because it wasn't like we really overthought anything and we were like, oh, well, this needs to, like, hit harder and, like, it needs to sound more like this band or something like that, or, like,
Yeah,
you know, it was just kind of like we wrote what we wrote, and it was, like, comfortable and natural. And I think the thing that we always are striving to achieve is timelessness and, you know, versatility, because we want everyone, like we've always said, like, we want, like, you know, your 10-year-old cousin and your grandma to be able to listen to our music, because that's to us, it's unifying. Like, music is kind of about unity and bringing people together. So whenever we used to play shows, even Lights in the Sky, and we'd have, like, you know, an older person come up to us after the show who you don't expect to compliment you, and that happens, it makes you feel good, because it kind of makes you feel like you're not just, like, some kid who's, you know, only speaking to, like, a certain age group within the teens, you know. So I think for us, it's very important to make sure that we can involve everyone in our music, and that we're not shunning anyone from listening to it, but also that we're being extremely genuine. And I think that's definitely, like, See the Sky is a very genuine product of our writing and our maturity.
I think that's a good answer, and I think you guys are really doing this at the right time, because, and this is something that's been coming up on the show a lot recently with what's happening with Warped Tour and how it's going to stop being this nationwide tour, and we don't really know what's going to come next yet, but we've been talking a lot on the show about the economics of losing Warped Tour, and I think as guys who have, you know, done the circuit of following Warped Tour, which is something I did when I was younger as well, it really makes you think about how do you promote a new project moving forward in the alternative space.
Right.
So for you guys, how are you approaching getting the word out about this band, knowing that what you did for your last project won't necessarily work this time around, and it might not even be possible?
Right. Tony?
yeah. So I mean, we're kind of just promoting it the way we always have, you know. Although it's funny because when we play, so I got to preface this a little bit. So we were always in this scene. We were always the band that never did pay to play. We probably sold tickets to a show one time, and it was the worst experience ever, and we never did it again. And the only reason we chose to agree to that was because, like, who was it? Evergreen Terrace was headlining. We're like, okay, this might be a good opportunity, you know.
Lower than Atlantis and Evergreen Terrace. That was a cool show, actually.
So, and we also never play at home, which is interesting. You know, we're people would always call us a local band. It would be like, what are you talking about? You know, and I don't know if that was our egos getting to us at a young age or whatever, but the way that we would work is we would tour seasonally. So we were all in school, you know. And so summer would come and we'd like play a tour kickoff show at home, and then we would tour for a month or 2 months or whatever, and then come home, or 2 weeks even, or whatever it is, and then come home and then not play a show for 2 months, you know. And so we never really focused much on promoting ourselves locally. We were more interested in promoting ourselves nationally. And I think a lot of that has to do with Los Angeles and California as a whole. I mean, we live in such a convoluted place for music, you know. Nobody stands out here. And the biggest shows here are people that aren't from here, which is almost a problem even. And if you go out on your phone and to bands in town on a Saturday night, there's like 300 concerts in Los Angeles alone. You know, it's insane.
Yeah.
So our strategy was always kind of to target those smaller markets. So like if back in the day you looked at our Facebook metrics, our biggest markets were like Utah and Texas, which is like so weird, but it's just what it was. And so I mean, we've always been kind of more of like a guerrilla warfare band, you know. We never were the guys that just lived on Facebook and mass added people and stuff like that. We were more about like, you know, we play a show in Texas tonight, let's go to the mall and tell a bunch of kids to come, and they would, you know. And that was kind of always our strategy, is to just build organically. And the thing is, like, I've seen so many bands, you know. I have this theory about music, and I think it hasn't happened for us really yet, but I think it's really true. And my theory is that it's not about who's the best; it's about the last man standing. Because bands like AFI, for instance, I think they were like a band for like 18 years before, like, what is it, Silver and Cold got on the radio. You know what I mean? Like, so there's so many crap bands that get famous, and I'm not saying AFI is crap at all, but there's so many crap bands that get famous that have no talent, you know what I mean? And so I think it's not about how good you are or how what your shtick is or your catch is, but the bands that get big and stay big and relevant, because it's not even about really being big, it's about staying relevant, you know, are the ones that don't go away. They don't fall off. They don't quit. They don't, you know what I mean? So our theory and marketing and just kind of like our mantra for this whole thing has always been, you know, just keep going. Like slow and steady wins the race. And, you know, I've seen so many bands come up so fast. Like what was that band called? I think it was called Make Me Famous. There's this band called Make Me Famous when we were coming up. And they were like, this kid was like YouTube famous or something, and he had some money, so he bought, like, his whole album was like features from like crappy metalcore bands, and they like dropped their album, and then a month later they're like on a world tour, and they were like a thing for like 8 months, and then nobody ever heard from them again. You know what I mean? And so for us, it's always been really not like, hey, let's like get a shtick or a gimmick and let's you know, spend a bunch of money on like Facebook campaigns and YouTube ads. It's been about like, let's just play shows the honest old fashioned way, and if people like us, they'll come back, and if they don't, then they can go after themselves, you know. And it's always been weird because we've always been kind of out of place when we play shows, because the original formation of the band was my friend Anthony and I, right? Like I told you earlier, and then Jonathan and his brother. So Anthony and I were making like a synth pop punk band, and Jonathan and his brother were into bands like the Human Abstract and like Periphery, and like, so we took like two like pop punk dudes like talking about girls and farting and pizza, and then two guys that were like screaming about black murder, and so our music was always really weird. Like we were never like poppy enough to be a pop punk band. We were never heavy enough to be a metalcore band. And so we would play shows, and people were like, who the hell are these guys?
You just never like fit in.
Yeah. So I mean, any growth we've ever experienced is just because we put in work for it. You know what I mean? It's never been like, oh, we got to get a marketing plan. So it's like this time around is the first time we've ever even like tried like PR and marketing. You know. And honestly, it's just because we have real jobs now, and we don't have time to just live on the road in a van for 5 months. You know.
As much as we'd love to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very true about how like what we aim to do and everything. And I think like the scene has changed a lot where even if like we'd love to just get in a van and tour, it's just like it's not like the way to do things anymore, unfortunately. It's like less about person to person interaction and you know, how we used to build fans was pretty much by playing a show and like being like, all right, you know, there's a few people in this city that like us, maybe they'll bring their friends, and they do, and then like you have a few more fans, you know, and you keep doing that time and time again, and you eventually get a following in that town. But I think these days, like especially with just all the stuff going on in social media and everyone's so, you know, busy on their phone all the time, it's people are going out less and less. At least that's kind of what I see, especially in Los Angeles. So we kind of focus on, we definitely do like a lot of social media out of necessity and out of, I mean, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy speaking with people on social media and seeing, you know, what fans or what friends and family think. And it's kind of a fun tool to use. It can be a little bit like overwhelming and stressful, but I think like you'll still find like that Tony and I will be doing stuff like going to self-help and like, you know, passing out flyers or like, you know, trying to get people to listen to our CD and stuff. It's like we're still those kind of guys who believe in that personal interaction, because I feel like music is such like a personal thing and such a like emotional thing that it's really important for people to connect with you that way. And we saw people from Warped Tour in 2014 like hitting us up and being like, you know, you guys, you know, listened to me when I was going through problems at Warped Tour, or, you know, you guys really made an impact on me, and we just had like a good conversation. And that kind of stuff is what makes us like really, really stoked to be able to do this. You know, that's kind of like a life-changing thing. And that's what we aim to do with the music, man. It's just create songs that are, you know, they're formed from our experiences, but they're also, the lyrics are open enough that someone can interpret them and apply them to their own lives. So I think like you'll definitely see us, you know, attacking this from many different angles, and not just sitting at home and throwing money at campaigns and stuff. You know, like we still want to be able to be that kind of grassroots band as well.
Well, I think the decision to bring in an extra team, I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier about, you know, the people that helped you make the record. You're surrounding yourselves with people who have all this experience in areas where you guys have you're bringing your own stuff to the table, but you're also, you've surrounded yourself with people who might know a little bit more in various areas, and altogether, I think you're making a better product as a result.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I mean, we're only having this conversation because you made the decision to bring a team in. Really, I mean, that's how I found out about you. Someone came to me and was like, "You have," and didn't stop until they were like, "You have got to listen to this band," which is good. So shout out Jen.
That's good to hear.
Doing
yeah.
her job. For you guys, I want to
shout out to them.
I'm curious because you guys are what, for lack of a better word, full blown adults. You know, you're not young anymore. You have like actual
Right.
jobs and bills and responsibilities. So when you're looking at,
Damn it, James.
yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm ruining the magic. So when you guys are looking at the release of this EP and you're kind of starting a new chapter in your musical careers, like what do you hope? But what do you hope to accomplish with this EP? I mean, is it already a success in your mind just because it's it's done, it's about to be out there in the world, or is it something that you're like, well, hopefully this leads us to here as a group or as artists or however you want to look at it? But for you, what is your goal with the release of this EP?
So for me, this isn't done until we play our release show, which is like March 3rd. Then it'll be real, because there's still so many things that could go wrong, you know. And so, man, my goal for this EP, honestly, you know, my goal, I don't know. It's just this is like, for me at least, this is getting my feet wet again, you know, and I think that my goal for this EP is to test the waters and see what we could make of this. And knowing John and myself, we're pretty steadfast, you know, like we're not. I mean, we've lost so many members over the years, but the thing in common is that the common thread is that John and I just keep pushing, like even when we shouldn't be. You know, we haven't played a show in 3 years, maybe
3 years, yeah.
3 or 4 years, and we'll still tell people we're in a band, you know? Oh yeah, we're a band. What are you guys gonna play? I don't know, dude. You know? Like
3 years later.
Yeah, 3 years later. But I don't have, you know, as you get older, especially in this industry, like I grew up around this industry. My aunt and uncle were A&Rs, and my grandfather was a musician, and I don't have any delusions about what this is. You know what I mean? A lot of kids think that they're gonna drop their EP and then somebody's gonna hear them and they're gonna get signed to, like, you know, we met these kids in Texas one time, and they were, I can't remember the name of their band. They were great kids, super positive kids. Their parents let us stay out, good kids, and they signed to like Victory, and they were like so stoked, like, we signed to Victory, yeah. It's like, that's awesome, dude. He's like, yeah, we signed a 10 album deal, and I'm like, that's your whole life, dude. Like, you know? And so I don't have any delusions that, like, I'm going to get signed to some label and we're going to take off and I'm going to be famous and rich, you know? And honestly, at this point in the game, I don't know if I want to get signed. You know what I mean? I don't, all of our friends that have been quote unquote successful and gotten signed, like, they're kind of just doing the same thing they were doing beforehand. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of that has to do with that delusion that getting signed makes you successful. But really, I think a lot of bands don't, you know, unless they're signed to like Sony or something like that, or Capitol Records or Hollywood Records or whoever giant record label it is, and they just make you tour and give you a huge advance. Like, once you get signed to an independent label, you still have to work your butt off, you know? And I think a lot of bands get signed and they're like, yeah, we made it. And then they don't do anything with it. You know what I mean? They just sit around at home and still play the same 5 shows a year and don't want to tour. And so for me, like, the goal is not necessarily like some grand gesture from the universe. The goal is, you know, start playing music again, start putting it out there, and just being active, you know? The reason that Capital North came back together, it's not because we thought, like, this time it's going to work. It's because we were tired of going to concerts and texting each other drunk at 11:30 at night, like, dude, we should be up there, man, you know? It's something.
Yeah, I was sober.
I was drunk, you were sober. It's something that's more, like, deeply ingrained in us, you know? Music is has always been a part of our lives. It's not one of these situations where, like, I saw a music video when I was 14 and I wanted to be in a band, so I bought a bass. I've been playing music since I was like 4 years old, you know, and John's been playing guitar since he was like 5 or 6 or something like that. And it's always been a thing for us, you know? And so it's not the success of the EP for me is just playing music again. There's no real end goal, you know? Like, I don't have plans to stop, and I never did, and I don't have there's no breaking point. It's just like, hey, let's actually do something with this instead of just talking about it. So that success for me is when it comes out, because that to me means we accomplished what we were seeking to do. You know, anything else that happens after that, it's just icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, man. I think already, like, I feel pretty, I don't know if I'd say like successful, but I feel like proud of what we've accomplished. And I definitely think that, like, because we do have this, you know, past experience with everything again, it's like we don't really have any like illusions of grandeur, you know what I mean? And I took a class recently with Mike Mowry from Outer Loop, and he was saying, like, there's so many bands that come to him and they're just like, you know, oh, we just need to get signed, and like that, and then like that'll be like it, you know? And I think definitely, like, Tony and I, or at least I, like, used to have that kind of illusion, and it's kind of like something that's almost sold to you in a way with all of the, you know, all the bands you look into and all the bands that you look up to. It kind of just seems like, oh, that's the way to go. Like, I just need like a label behind me, but it's really all about like hard work, I think. And I think that's something that our work ethic is something that we have like kind of formulated over time. And for instance, a band like Portugal the Man, right? Like they're a huge influence to me. And I remember seeing them at the Glass House. And I don't even know how old I was, maybe like 15 or something, like very young, you know. When you know, Wait Are You Vultures first came out, or maybe it wasn't even out yet. But they were on tour with Here Before, and I mean, drastic sound, you know, changes between the two bands, you know, very, very different sounding. But I remember how small they were. And then, like, you know, come 2018, they're winning a Grammy for, you know, for their song. So to us, that is super indicative of just working hard can really, like, working hard and having patience, and like Tony said, being steadfast can really like lead you to achieve like what you want to achieve, and to you know, reach your goals and everything. So I think for us, it's we're in it for the long run, and we're not like, oh, we're going to drop See the Sky and everyone's going to love it and we're going to become like huge world famous rock stars. You know what I mean? It's like, we really hope people like it. We really hope like it does, you know, grow the Capital North family, and you know, create a little bit of awareness, and hopefully a lot of awareness. But we're not expecting to be, you know, gigantic, touring with U2 next year or something, you know.
Year after
That'd be
that,
sweet though.
not off the books, but next year. Maybe. Well, I really appreciate that, guys. I think that's a great way to look at it. I do want to ask you one more question before I want to start wrapping things up, but I was curious because I love the single so much, and we're going to use it in the episode, so everyone that hasn't heard it will have heard at least part of it now, and they'll hear the other half when the episode ends. But is the sound of Glass Houses what we can expect from the full EP?
I would say definitely not. What do you what do you think, Tony?
So Jonathan had mentioned like all the different like eclectic influences we have, and so I don't know, it's weird, man. I wish, I don't know. It's there's songs that are like epic, like the song on the album, Household Wars, is like, it's like a modern ballad, I guess, but like heavy, you know. And there's a breakdown, and it's intense and it's heartfelt. And then there's songs like Glass Houses that, you know, are kind of like more groovy. And there's songs, I mean, not really, you know. Every song is a little different. It's kind of like a sampler pack, you know. You get like a strawberry cupcake, a chocolate cupcake, a roast beef slider, and like, you know, a shot of wheatgrass with it. I mean, it's
That's so LA of you.
Yeah, so LA. It's like it's all the songs. You can tell that they're all us. You know, it's weird because all the songs, you can tell that they're our songs by listening to them. But it almost kind of like blurs genres, I think, and I don't think in a bad way. You know, a lot of people will say like, oh, your EP or your album needs to be more comprehensive and the songs need to kind of like vibe together. But we've always kind of been against that. You know, we just write what we're feeling, because, you know, how many times have you, I mean, I guess not very often anymore, but how many times as a kid have you bought an album and like the first 3 songs are epic, and then after that every song sounds like each other, you know? Because it's like, let's write, the first song has to be big, the single has to be big, and then everything else after that can be filler, you know? And so we'd rather just write 4 or 5 songs that we think are interesting, you know what I mean? And so honestly, no, I think the album is you'll hear it and you'll be like, okay, that's still them, but it won't really vibe the same exact way from song to song, you know? That's at least my perception of it.
Yeah, totally. I think it's definitely a comprehensive album in the way that it is us on every song, and you're gonna hear like sort of like a loose storyline, or at least like a conceptual kind of thing going on, theme going on throughout the entire EP. But you're not gonna hear like one song like Glass Houses and then hear something very similar to it in any other song. You know, there's a lot of just a lot of different influence and a lot of different emotion throughout the entire EP. And I think it's going to be kind of like it is like a cataclysm of everything that we felt over the last couple of years and everything that's influenced us and that we've experienced. So I think we love Glass Houses. I honestly I love that song a lot, but I love I have to say, like, I love every song on the album. That's just not even just for self promotion. I just really do, because they're songs that we really are close to, and that we really took the time to figure out and put together. And they, like Tony said, they weren't just thrown together. I mean, we had a couple more songs that we could have put on it and made it a full length, and that would have been no problem. But we just didn't feel them as much as we feel these, 6
And also,
tracks. So
yeah, also I think that's important to recognize the way that we wrote this album. A lot of bands will be like, all right, time to write an album. You have 6 months or 3 months, or they're doing it on tour, and they're not really able to give it their full attention. And then producers come in and they make it, we got to make this marketable, and you got to cut that, and we need a catchier hook, and this should be that way, and this should be that way. But the way that, I told you we've been writing this album for like 2 years, 3 years. It's been years in the making. And so I think that the thing that offers, and probably the reasons that the songs, although I feel like they are comprehensive, might feel disjointed a bit as far as genre goes, is because when we were writing them, we didn't set out to write an album. We were writing songs based on how we felt in the moment, and that came together to become an EP. And so it wasn't every song was written with a different mindset, in a different place, with different things going on. And I think that's why it almost became like a linear conceptual thing. Is not because we said, let's make a concept EP. It's because, like 2.5 years ago, we wrote a song about what was going on. And then 2 years ago, we wrote another song about what was going on. And then 1.5 years ago, we wrote another song about what was going on. So the reason that it's conceptual and linear is because it's just reflective of where our lives were at that point. And kind of like the progression of we've done a bunch of like written interviews, and everyone says like, tell us about your inspiration for the album, and it's like our inspiration for the album is just like life. It's not like, we're not trying to tell some specific crazy story, like we're not Coheed and Cambria, it's more about reflecting on the world around you in the moment. Because and I've said this like 20,000 times in the past couple of weeks, but a lot of us, we live in such a way that's like very distracted, like we wake up and we go to work and we hang out with our friends, and we maybe see our girlfriends, and we watch TV and we watch movies, and we do the same thing over and over and over and over, and nobody really has time these days to kind of like put their phone down, take a step back, like look up at the sky, and just kind of think like what's actually going on around us, And so luckily we have music. And I think the nature of the beast is that you end up reflecting whether you want to or not, because you need inspiration, And the album is comprehensive because it's a story about what's happening in our lives, but it's also a little bit disjointed in some people's eyes, because it goes from mellow to poppy to chaotic. And the reason it does that is because life goes from good times to bad times to mundane times. And I think that's the reflection of us that you'll see in the music, is that it's not like, oh, we're a punk band, we have to write a punk album. It's like, hey, we're people, and this is how we feel, and this is like what our lives are like. So I think that kind of is the best way I can describe that.
I agree with that. Well done. Well said.
Well said, sir. Well said. So the EP comes out on the 2nd, correct? March 2nd? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, March 2nd.
There's a video out right now for the single. The single's on all streaming services. Is there another song coming before then?
There will be. Yeah, we'll leave you with that. But do expect a lot of visual representation of the album, and there's going to be more videos coming out and more of that to look forward to. So we definitely feel like this EP needed that strong visual push, and we're a huge fan of that kind of portrayal of music. So definitely look forward to that, and there will be another track coming out before the album release.
Well, I wish you guys the best of luck in everything. I really love the single. It's great, and I think you are. I'm trying to think of a way to say that doesn't sound so cheesy, but you're absolutely forward-thinking artists, and I appreciate what you're doing to get your music out there.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that, man.
Nope. No problem. Do you guys have any shows? I mean, you mentioned the release show, right? So do you have any dates? Where can people see you in the coming weeks?
So we have a show coming up in Henderson, Nevada on February 24th. I believe that's a Saturday. That's at the Eagle Area Hall. And then we'll have our release show in Los Angeles at Amplify on March 9th. So those are all on our socials and everything. You guys can check that out. Capital North CA, all of our social handles. And yeah, if you haven't already, definitely check out the Glass House's music video. And we hope to see you guys at a show. I think hopefully people are going to like what we put out at the show, because we definitely do our own kind of interpretation of the album, and we try to keep it interesting live. So we're really excited to get back on stage. That's something that I've been itching to do lately these last 3 years. So
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic, guys. Well, thank you so much. And you already dropped your Twitter handle, so I don't got to ask you to do that. Look at you, professionals, and it's only like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm proud of you. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. You've got a lot of it left, so enjoy it, and best of luck with everything, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you so much, James.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it, brother.
Yep, thank you.
All right, take care.